Hey, how's it going? Today I'm talking about Dopey Race Part 5 Warm Up and Stretching.
This is Running to the Castle, a podcast for injury-prone RunDisney runners on a journey to running magical miles. Join me, Dr. Allie, as I share the secrets I've gathered as a runner, doctor of physical therapy, and coach. You'll learn the exact ways I get my clients to the castle strong without feeling broken or held together with KT tape as they cross the finish line.
Okay, at the time of recording this, it is marathon weekend. So we are talking about the Dopey Race. Now, please remember that this information does translate to other races, whether you're doing a 2-course challenge and doing 2 days back-to-back, or maybe you're doing 5K, 10K, and half marathon on other race weekends, or even the 10-miler Springtime Surprise Challenge. But the real difference will be the length of time you're warming up and stretching, and what you're doing later at the hotel. So I will update these for things like Princess Weekend for Fairy Tale Challenge, Wine and Dine 2-course challenge, Springtime Surprise 3-course challenge. I think I just held up 4 fingers. That was incorrect. But today we're talking Dopey. So I want to first talk about the difference between stretches. So there are different types of stretches. There are things that are more mobility type, where you're moving into a position and then coming out of it, just kind of moving around, loosening up, versus static stretches. Static meaning you're staying in one place, in one position for a prolonged amount of time. Now, I use the term prolonged where it's really not that long. It could be 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, or a minute, but when compared to mobility or dynamic stretches, it is prolonged. Even that 10 seconds, that is prolonged compared to these other definitions. Dynamic stretching means that you are stretching through a whole range of motion. You are going through a motion, but you're not staying in place. So this could be something, or you could not be standing in place. You could stand in place. And I recommend when you're in the corrals and you're doing dynamic stretching that you do stay in place, because there's only so much space that you can move around in. But that could be things like hip openers, or some people do walking lunges, things like that. Now, I am going to give you a routine for you to take and use at your will. Please remember, nothing new on race week. If you haven't been doing it yet, now's not the time to start, because, and this is especially if you're an injury-prone runner, we don't know what these stretches are going to do to your muscles in your hips. We also don't know what they're going to do to your, I said muscles and hips, I mean muscles and joints. We also don't know what they'll do to your muscles and joints on back-to-back days, right? Like, that's why there are so many simulation weekends on my free training plans and in Stronger, Faster, Finisher, because we want your body to get used to doing 4 days in a row. We want you to recognize what your body feels like 4 days in a row, so then you can adjust. So then when it comes to race day, you're like, oh, I know what I'm doing. I know how I'm going to feel after day 1. I know how I'm going to feel after day 2 and day 3 and finally day 4, right? And we know what to do in between those races, in between those long runs, if it's a simulation weekend, to make sure that you feel your best going into each day, especially that full marathon. Because the full marathon in itself is a beast. Now add it to 5K, 10K, and half marathon. You're really dopey when you do this challenge. So those are the different definitions. So dynamic stretching and mobility, they're going to seem like the same, with the exception that I can make any static stretch a mobility movement. I can't make traditional dynamic stretches a mobility movement. Well, I guess now that I'm saying that out loud, yeah, I guess dynamic stretches are also in the category of mobility, but not all mobility are dynamic stretches in the sense that I'm going to use them. Maybe I'll correct myself at the end of this because now that I'm saying that out loud, I'm not sure about that. Hmm, that's okay. I usually don't use them synonymously, but maybe I just haven't been optimizing my vocabulary in that sense. Anyway, let's talk about warm up. So, warm up can be a series of dynamic stretches and walking. So, if you're following one of my free training plans or if you're in Stronger, Faster, Finisher, you know that I recommend a 10-minute walking warm up. You want to do a warm up because that literally gets your body ready to shunt blood flow to the correct area. So, if you've ever had the feeling of your legs like locking up in the first 2 miles of a run, and then it eases by mile 3, that's your body telling you, we aren't ready to accept blood flow to our calf muscles or our quad muscles. It's usually the calf muscle though. So calf muscles, plural. So if you've ever had that sensation, I recommend warming up. So what happens is you have, go back to 5th grade science, I think, maybe 9th grade science. I don't know. I learned it in so many different science years that it all blends together. But let's go back to early science, and you have fight or flight, rest and digest. So those are 2 different terms talking about how our body is responding. So when we are in fight or flight mode, our body is ready to run. Think a lion is chasing you, and your body on the inside physiologically changes how it distributes your blood. It's not distributing it to your digestive organs. As an example, your stomach doesn't need extra blood flow. Your intestines don't need extra blood flow. Your skeletal muscles, like your calf muscles, your quad muscles, your core, your hamstrings, your glutes, they need extra blood flow because they need more blood flow to have more oxygen so that you can run better, faster, stronger. Okay? When you are in rest and digest mode, you are resting, you are calm. Your body is sending that blood flow to your stomach because it needs more blood flow, to your intestines because it needs more blood flow. It needs more blood flow and needs more oxygen and the other particles of the blood to literally digest your food. That's why you shouldn't have a massive meal before you go out and run, like immediately before. You should have it 1 to 2 hours before so that your body can digest it. Because if you take in a massive meal and then try and go run, you're going to get a stomach cramp because your body's trying to digest the food, but it's shunted the blood flow to the skeletal muscles, which it deems more important. So then you get a stomach cramp. So the warm-up helps prepare and prime your body to send blood flow to those skeletal muscles. So what literally happens in your blood vessels, in your legs, well, your whole, whatever body part you're using, but we're runners here. We're runners and walkers, so we'll talk about the legs. What literally happens is your body sends a signal to your blood vessels in your legs that says, open up because we need more blood flow. So the vessels dilate, they vasodilate. Vaso means blood vessel, so vaso, vein, artery, blood vessels dilate, open, so that you can have more blood flow. More blood flow means more oxygen and other nutrients that are in the blood. And then it constricts or closes, not completely, doesn't block them off, but it constricts and closes the blood vessels that go to your internal organs that don't need as much blood flow. As an example, your stomach and your intestines. So doing a warm-up helps get your body primed and ready for it. And the way that you will notice that is your heart will start beating faster. That is a clue that we are going to activate, right? Because when we're resting, our heart rate is not that high. We don't have that fast or as intense of a pulse as of a heartbeat. Of course, your heart is still beating, but it's not like that pounding that you can feel after a run. You put your hand up to your neck artery, your carotid artery here in your neck, and you can feel it really pulsing because your heart is beating really fast. That is part of the cascade of events that happens when it shunts blood flow to the skeletal muscles that need that blood flow. Whereas when you're resting and digesting, you don't have as fast of a heartbeat. Your heartbeat actually slows down a little bit because it doesn't need to filter it to all of these different skeletal muscles. So we want to warm up, ease our way into being ready to go run 5K, 10K, half marathon, full marathon, telling our muscles, here, take all of the blood flow, please, right? So we can do that in the form of walking. We can do that in the form of riding a bike. We can do that in the form of adding heat. Heat will vasodilate, right? Cause our blood vessels to open up. That's part of a reaction that happens with heat. We can do it with dynamic stretches. So in the running world, in the walking world, dynamic stretches and walking are my favorite way to warm up because it also, in addition to warming up and priming your heart, it's also warming up and priming your joints. So for anybody who has something like osteoarthritis or arthritis in the hip, in the knee, in the ankle, in the back. Now, I'm not talking rheumatoid arthritis. I'm not talking gouty arthritis. I'm talking osteoarthritis, which happens in the joints. If your doctor just said, oh, you have arthritis and didn't use the names gout, gouty arthritis, or rheumatoid arthritis, or RA, then you likely have this type of arthritis called osteoarthritis. To be honest, everybody over the age of 20 has some form of arthritis. Yes, 20. Okay, it's natural wear and tear on your synovial joints. It's wrinkles on the inside. Okay, that's the easiest way to think about it. We all get them. There are ways to make it so that we don't have as many, right? Like people get Botox for their wrinkles, their crow's feet, their 11s, their frown lines, things like that, right? Those are ways to limit wrinkles. Forgot the word for a second. Limit wrinkles. There are other things that you can do to appease the arthritis on the inside. Synvisc shots, gel shots, cortisone injections, or moderate amount of movement. Too little makes your joints tight and stiff. Too much makes your joints irritated and inflamed. We like a happy medium. And one way that you can help warm up those joints, especially if you wake up in the morning, race day, and your joint feels tight and stiff, you go through all of the motions that joint goes through. So as an example, your hip goes through 6 motions: forward, back, outward, inward, rotate right, and rotate left. 6 motions, or a big circle if we're really getting nitty-gritty, 7 motions, because circumduction technically is a combined motion. Anyway, or your knee joint, forward and back, bending and straightening, right? Your ankle also goes in about 6 motions: up, down, in, out, rotate, rotate. So we want to go through all of these motions because we want to prime that joint, get the synovial fluid that lines the joints to line the joint. When you are static, that fluid is static. That's why when you wake up in the morning, if you have arthritis, you're more likely to feel stiff and tight. Even if you don't have arthritis, you can feel that way when you have to get up and run so many days in a row. So maybe the 5K, you wake up like a, spring chicken. You're 18 years old again. But by marathon, you're like, ooh, this is tight. Now, of course, your muscles can get tight. I'll talk about that in a minute. But you can also get stiff and tight in the joint even if you don't have arthritis, because you have just gone more than moderate amount of activity. And that's okay every once in a while. We just need to know what's happening so that we can modify. So doing things like hip openers, swinging the legs forward and back, swinging the legs side to side, high knees, butt kicks, just marching in place or standing and kicking your butt in place, ankle circles, ankle raises, heel raises, toe raises, so lifting the toes in the air, doing ankle circles. Those are all examples of dynamic movements, also mobility movements. So here I am correcting myself. I haven't been using those terms synonymously, but in this context, I absolutely can, because you're going through a motion, but you're not staying there for 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 30 seconds. And in a warm-up, you want to come in and you want to leave. You want to do the motion, you want to come out of the motion. You want to just get it done. You don't want to stay in that position. That's for static stretching. You don't want to do that before your body is primed and ready to go. You want to move through it to loosen up your joints and loosen up your muscles. And so those are different ways to loosen up your joints and a few muscles. But you could also, if you need to specifically warm up your quads, well, you could do some butt kicks. So you stretch out your quad, but you're not staying in that position. So it's not a static quad stretch. Okay. So that's the warm up. And then, so you can do that in the corral and then start off your first 0 to the first mile marker, walk, or do a slower jog and ease into it. Nobody wants their muscles to be cramping up over the course of 4 days, and nobody wants their muscles to be cramping up at all, but definitely not when you have to run 4 days, because it's harder to handle than it is to prevent, right? But we often don't think about it until we have to handle it because it doesn't hurt now. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? But from my experience as a runner and a physical therapist, seeing how much activity you're doing over the course of 4 days, I can tell you right now, let's do prevention so that you don't feel that at marathon, because 98% of the runners that are doing Dopey are going to feel tight, stiff, and cramped at least by the end of the marathon, if not before the marathon, based on doing 3 other days of activity in a row. I've seen it time and time again with my patients in the clinic and my runners in Stronger, Faster, Finisher. So please, an ounce of prevention, right? Not super glamorous, but let's get it done. So that's the warm up. And then static stretching is saved for after. The amount of warm up and stretching that you do is going to be commensurate with the amount of activity you're doing. So I was saying that a little bit in the intro, that this information translates to other race distances, but the amount that you're doing is not. So the amount that you do a warm up for a 5K on day 1 versus a warm up for the marathon on day 4 is going to be different. You're going to need to warm up longer. So that's either starting sooner in the corrals or walking longer in the first couple of miles of the race. It's going to be different. It needs to be commensurate with the amount of activity that you've done and are going to do. Same thing with static stretching. Static stretching happens after the race. This is to prevent soreness from really setting in. Now, don't get me wrong. You are going to be sore definitely after the marathon, definitely after the half marathon, maybe the 5K and 10K, depending on your experience as a runner. Stretch after every single race, 5K, 10K, half marathon, and full marathon, even if it feels like you don't need to do it. Future you will thank you. So stretching, I recommend all major muscle groups: quads, hip flexors, hamstrings, calf muscles, shins, back, chest. I know it doesn't feel like you really use your back and your chest a lot, but over the course of the time on your feet, your body will get tired, right? We're running a lot or we're walking a lot. When we get tired, we start going back to our natural position, which is the fetal position. So then we start leaning forward, we start hunching down, and our chest starts tightening, our shoulders start tightening, our hip flexors start tightening, our abs start tightening, and it can be a real beast to come out of that. Okay, so that's one of the biggest reasons why hip flexors are such a problem for marathon runners. Yes, you are using your hip flexors to run. And of course, you want to use your glutes to run as well, right? It's easier to push something than it is to pull something. So that's why you want to use glutes more. It's easier to use the glutes to push you than these teeny tiny hip flexors to pull you. But that's beside the point for this conversation because it's also based on the position that you get yourself into. And it's natural. You get tired and you just start curling up. Right? Like notice next time when you don't feel good, what position do you naturally go to? You go to fetal position. So when that happens when you're tired, but you're running, of course you're not in a ball, but you are more crouched over. So you do want to stretch out things like your abs, your hip flexors, your shoulders, and also your quads, your hamstrings, your calf muscles, your glutes. I think I missed glutes in the first round of listing them off. Because those are the major muscle groups that are affected with running. Whether you're actively using them or not, they are effective. If you've never done stretching before, I know I already said nothing new on race day. I think this one can be the exception. If you've never stretched before, though, hold the position no more than 10 seconds at a time. So do 6 of them. So right quad stretch, 10 seconds, left quad stretch, 10 seconds. And you go back and forth between side to side to give yourself a little bit of a break. Total stretching time, recommendation is 60 seconds. So you can break that up into 6 repetitions of 10 seconds, 4 repetitions of 15 seconds, 2 repetitions of 30 seconds, 3 repetitions of 20 seconds, 1 repetition of 60 seconds. I only recommend the 1 repetition of 60 seconds for people that are well-versed in stretching. So you've stretched your whole life, you do yoga regularly, you used to be a gymnast, people like that. It's few and far between that somebody stretches for a full 60 seconds. I am somebody that stretches for a full 60 seconds. I used to be a gymnast. I am a hypermobile human. I am loosey-goosey. I am super flexible. That's how my body is made, and I stretch all the time. I have never stopped stretching. So I can hold it for 60 seconds and that's no problem. I'd say most people are in the 3 for 20 seconds range, maybe 2 for 30 seconds. But I'd say for most people, they're not actually holding it for 30 seconds. So I do actually recommend setting a timer so you do fulfill that obligation. When in doubt, hold it a little less, but do an extra repetition because this also should not be significantly painful. If you're coming out of the stretch and you're like, ooh, and you make that noise, do mobility first. So mobility in this case is doing the static stretch, but not holding it at all. So if you're doing a quad stretch, you're going to hold your foot to your butt, but you're immediately going to remove it. Or you're doing just a butt kick, as opposed to holding your heel to your butt for 10, 15, 20, 30, or 60 seconds at a time. The amount of stretching you do, not how many muscle groups you hit, but how many repetitions, how much frequency you do it is going to be related to what race you're doing. So 5K, you may only do 10 minutes of stretching. 10K, you may do 15 minutes of stretching. So how does that actually look? You're doing the same stretches, but you're doing more of them. I recommend not necessarily holding them for longer, but doing more repetitions. So let's say you did 3 for 20 seconds quad stretches for your 5K, but you need to stretch a little bit more. So instead of doing 3 for 20 seconds, you do 4 for 20 seconds. Now remember when I said that stretching is 60 seconds, at least. By all means, you can do some more. For the half marathon, maybe you're doing 5 or 6 repetitions. For the full marathon, maybe you're doing 10 repetitions. It varies, and it depends on what you need. And then I recommend, so that's immediately after the race. You have not cooled down yet. That is the key. Don't let your muscles cool off. Your muscles still need to be warm. So this needs to happen while you're standing in line to get your finisher photo. Like after you run through the chute, you cross the finish line, you get your medal, you get your box of goodies, and you go to get a photo. Do it while you're standing in line. Don't wait until after. You're going to be cold. Don't wait until you get to the hotel room. You're going to be cold. And then you're going to have to warm up again in order to stretch. Do it while you're warm, and then do it again after your shower, because you'll be slightly warm after the shower, but you still have to do it immediately after the finisher chute, and then do it at the end of the day before you go to bed. Every day. So that's 3 times race weekend. Plus, if you use a foam roller and you're bringing it, a massage gun and you're bringing it, or the squeezy boots, the pneumatic compressive devices, use those when you get back to the hotel room. As soon as you're done organizing yourself, putting down your box of goodies and your medals and everything like that. You can be cold. Like, you don't have to do those immediately after while your muscles are still warm. You can be cold to use those. So those can wait a little bit. If you use compression stockings and you don't wear them during the race, but you use them after, use them once you get back to the room after you shower, and maybe even go and lay with your legs on the wall for 5 to 10 minutes. The goal with that is getting the fluid out of the feet and out of the calf muscles, out of the shins, before you put the compression stockings on. Because if you put compression stockings on when they're already swollen, in this particular case, when they're already swollen, it can actually make them more swollen and more painful. So we want to avoid that when possible. So if you go lay with your legs up on the wall for 5 to 10 minutes, that can help. And you do a little ankle pumps and things like that. Okay, so that's mobility and stretching for the Dopey race. Take this information as you will, use what you can, and let me know how your race went. Please take what you've learned in this episode and use it to adjust your strategy for your RunDisney race training. It's not about doing more. It's about doing the right things in the right balance so you can finish strong, not broken. And if you want personalized guidance specific to your race, your injury history, your running background, and your goals, that's exactly what we do inside Stronger, Faster, Finisher. You'll get step-by-step instructions and a proven system to help you train smarter from start to finish. Join the waitlist today to be the first to know when it opens next. That's all for now. Talk to you soon.